previous sessions. I wanted to help you to make you reflect upon what we have studied previously. We were talking about sex determination in mammals, including man, insects, and birds. And in that, we studied the presence of a dominant chromosome will decide the sex of the baby or the offspring. In this session, we are going to study about a very interesting one in the sense it will make us to understand why particular disease exists all of a sudden in a family, or why it will disappear in some and reappear after some time. So all this can be understood. To begin with, it may be a puzzle, but when we do what we call pedigree analysis of a family, we will come to know why a particular disease all of a sudden affects a person, or why it reappears or disappears. So basically, we are going to study about what is very important and what is very interesting is pedigree analysis. So the study of inheritance of genetic traits in several generations of a family is called pedigree analysis. I repeat, the study of inheritance of genetic traits in several generations. So normally we take parental generation, then F1 generation, F2 generation, F3 generation, like that. So if we are able to study a particular pattern of the genetic trait that appears in several generations, then it is pedigree analysis. Pedigree study, strong tool. It's a very, very strong tool of human genetics to trace inheritance of specific trait or abnormality or disease. Pedigree analysis of inheritance of traits is represented in a family tree. It helps in genetic counseling to avoid genetic disorders. Like whenever we are doing this pedigree analysis, we have got certain symbols. As you are seeing on the right side of your slide, if you are putting a square, it's a male. And if you are making it a round, then it is a female. And if it is the square is shifted, something like a rhombus, then it is unspecified sex. The sex is unspecified. And if the symbols, above symbols, male, female, sex unspecified symbol are blocked, that means we shade this, then it is affected individuals. That means if we make a square and shade it, that means the male is affected with some genetic disorder or abnormality. Female one, round one is shaded, then that particular female in that particular family is affected with some genetic disorder or abnormality. Similarly, sex unspecified one also, if we shade it, it means the unspecified sex person has got some abnormality. And when we put a square and a round, join both, it means it is mating. There is a intercourse between the two. And when we put double lines, two lines, then it is the relatives. The mating is between the relatives. We say consanguineous mating. Means both the male and female are related to each other. Maybe it is a maternal uncle, maternal auntie's daughter or son. Someone is getting married to that girl or boy. Then we have got one square and linked to round one. Square is linked with sphere. Both are connected. Then below we put a dash and again put one square. This represents parents above and children below. And in order of birth, left to right always. It is left to right. So seniority is from left to right. And then parents with male child affected with a disease. Look at that. Now parents are normal because we have put a normal square and a sphere. But the child who is taking birth, we are putting it in red colored or shaded. That means the parents have given birth to a child who is affected with genetic disorder or abnormality. And then we have got identical twins. The children that are born are identical twins, including the sex. Both may be girls, both may be boys, like that. And then if there is one girl and one boy, then the children are non-identical twins. Similarly, we may put say the unaffected ones, numbering. Let's say we put a square and we say 5, 6 or 3, 4. That means that many children are there. Offsprings are, we are counting with 4, 5, like that. And one more is there. If you put a round one, sphere, and then half shade it, then it is a carrier. Or you may put a dot, then it is a carrier. So pedigree analysis, what is the use of it? Pedigree analysis is useful in many ways, like it helps to fill up the possible genotypes. We can write the genotype like we are writing now in monohybrid cross, dihybrid cross. We have been writing it in dihybrid class we said T1, like that. And similarly, we were writing it as capital T, small t, and small t, small t. This is how we were writing the genotype. And whenever we were writing a genotype, the genotype is allowing us or letting us know the possible phenotype. When we wrote capital T, it is pure tall, isn't it? Small t, pure dwarfism, dwarfness, shortness. And when we write heterozygously, capital T, small t, still it is as tall as capital T, but it is not pure, it is hybridized. So when we write this pedigree analysis, we will understand the possible genotypes, and thereby we can know the phenotype also. It helps to study the pattern of inheritance of a dominant or recessive trait. I said the dominant trait is a character which expresses itself in a person, and a recessive one is a trait that cannot be expressed in the presence of dominant gene, but if it is homozygous, even the recessive one can express itself. So it helps us to study the pattern of inheritance. What is the way in which the gene that is causing a particular genetic disorder is coming out in a family, or absence of a particular gene may also cause particular disease, abnormality. So we will be studying many diseases, Mendelian as well as chromosomal. If a particular gene is missing on a particular chromosome, what are the various diseases that will come to that family? In our next session, in detail, we will study. Similarly, part of the chromosome, part of the chromatid, or entire chromosome is missing, then it results in chromosomal abnormalities. So we will be studying about chromosomal disorders also in our next session. But to know chromosomal disorder as well as Mendelian disorders, we need to understand why it is coming. In a family, particular person in a particular generation is affecting or is affected with a particular disease. To know the reason, we need pedigree analysis. So it is something like a tree. We start off with the parental generation, come down to F1, F2, F3. Then we trace out right from, let's say F2 to go back to parental generation, grandparents' generation. Then we understand a particular gene is missing in that family. Because of that, if it is a dominant trait, it expresses generation after generation. If it is a recessive one, it will miss in between some generations and reappear. So this is how we understand a particular abnormality, genetic abnormality, through pedigree analysis. The possible genetic makeup of a person for a trait can also be known with the help of pedigree. So we can also know the genetic makeup of that particular person. So we can understand all this through pedigree analysis. And an open and clear symbol represents the absence of a trait. suppose it is not shaded, the symbol is not shaded, then it means it is the person is not having any abnormality. So genetic disorders can be grouped into two categories. There are Mendelian disorders and chromosomal disorders. So the Mendelian disorders are transmitted from one generation to the next following Mendel's principles of heredity. Inheritance of Mendelian disorders can be represented in pedigree charts. I'll be posting some pedigree charts in our WhatsApp group. You can just see, trace out or find out whether it is autosomal dominant or autosomal recessive, or is it a sex-linked disorder. I'll be posting all the three pictures in our group. You can just trace out why a particular male or a female is suffering with a genetic disorder. Similarly, pedigree analysis also helps us in tracing the chromosomal disorders. Like we will be studying in detail in our next session about Down's syndrome, then Turner's syndrome, and Klinefelter's syndrome. So what I want you to do is, when I put this photos or maps, pedigree maps, I want you to work out and trace out why a particular individual suffers with either Mendelian disorder or chromosomal disorder. So it is very, very interesting, because we will be able to in a position to analyze why a particular disease exists in a particular family, and we can take possible precautions. Like you must have read in newspapers, you must have seen in TV, many public figures, influential figures, they have identified that their families were having, for example, breast cancer, and they have identified possible gene why a female gets breast cancer in the family continuously. So the future individuals